I'm coming to you from Columbia University, New York City, and I've got Professor Bhagwati with me. Thank you, Professor Bhagwati, for joining us here on ET Now. A fascinating session with the finance minister as well as Dr. Arvind Panagria.
Right.
And a question you asked about Aadhaar, about the right to privacy, whether that's going to derail the government's plans. Were you convinced by what the finance minister had to say?
Yes, I think so, because what he was pointing out was that the issue of privacy had been addressed by the court, and that exceptions had been made which would actually allow us to use the Aadhaar for purposes of distribution of benefits, which is the main objective of the whole show. So I was rather happy to hear him, because he had thought through the whole thing. And of course, on law, he's unmatched. And he gave a very detailed, very satisfying answer. Because I was a bit worried, because the judges, I come from a legal family, as you know, and in principle I have high regard for judges, but one of the things we are actually thinking of doing is to provide, retreats and so on. Because judges today are into all kinds of issues, because when the legislature doesn't function properly, we say the judges ought to do it. But the judges don't have knowledge frequently. You're lucky if they know the law well, but they don't know. They should know economics, they should know sociology, international relations, and they're pronouncing on all kinds of things for you and me, and that doesn't make sense. So I think the finance minister was very good, because he's a man who thinks.
But sir, from what you're saying, that means you've been also disappointed, or the community has been disappointed with the spate of recent judgments. Is that be the corollary of what you're saying?
No, not with this judgment, because the way he explained it, the judges had made exceptions for the distribution of benefits, which is, to me, the most important thing, because that undercuts all the politicians who are otherwise collecting the 90 paisa in the rupee and so on. So that is a very major thing. Besides, it also enables women to access the thing without the menfolk being necessarily involved. So if women have the access to a number, right, and then they can receive the money. And we know from a lot of economic research that if a woman gets the benefit of a transfer payment, they will usually spend it on education and healthcare. What will the men do? They just go to the pub and blow it up. So
That's what they say,
this is another advantage. So I think it can enable you to do gender-conscious distribution, which can be very helpful for improvement of welfare for the family.
Professor Bhagwati, I'm also joining you here at Columbia University on a day where the IMF has decided to cut India's growth forecast by 0.5 percentage point to sub 7%. The finance minister has said that there will be temporary blips. There's a transient in nature thanks to GST and demonetization. The IMF says medium term we should be back above 8%. Where do you stand as far as all of these issues go?
To me, IMF should be abolished, because they consistently make terrible forecasts. It's not easy to make forecasts. This is why when journalists like you ask me, would you forecast? I say, I have a reputation to lose. Don't ask. I'm not going to answer that question. But I think the IMF, the World Bank, these institutions we should get rid of them from India, in my opinion. Why should we be going in for... what are these institutions doing in India in the first place? We are a very successful country. We don't need these guys coming in with very little knowledge. And they're just making forecasts as usual. And our people, like you, take it too seriously.
No, I'm asking you that do you believe these are all the shockers that we've seen temporary in nature, the destocking, etc.?
No, I don't think so, because I was one of the people, and so was Professor Panagria, who said that actually demonetization might lead to an uplift of the economy, not a downturn. Why? Because a lot of money which was just sitting in the shelf, right, black money, would now be coming out. Because if it's left there, you lose it. So you find some way of maybe your servant or something, you give him 30%, and he waits in the queue, right, and converts it. So a lot of that we had expected that money which was not active, because it was just lying there, because lawyers and doctors, they all receive money in black, as you know. Sometimes there's no choice. But anyway, so that money is activated. When it is activated, it means demand for, goes up in the economy. So arguing from first principles, I had said, because I know nothing about, I'm not a finance expert, though actually very few people are. So I said, I expect the demand to increase. And two, I also thought that there would be no repercussion as far as the Prime Minister was concerned, which was negative. Because I did my own Gallup poll, which is really asking waiters and taxi drivers, and everybody was saying, "Oh, hamare Prime Minister hai." They
Okay,
were
so
not,
you think it was
so that was, where do those guys get those big notes from? Big notes belong to you and me. So they were very happy we were being hit on the head.
But
And
Professor Bhagwati,
so
when
I
demonetized,
expected
I
he
know
would
you
be-
have been in favor of demonetization,
No, that I
but the
expect he would be-
figures that show that all the cash came back to what
Yeah,
RBI
that doesn't
released.
matter. I've written an article. I can't summarize it here.
Okay.
It is in the
And Professor-
Mint or something.
And Professor Bhagwati, before I let you go, you said IMF should be abolished. I want to just get a quick question from you on: do you think that we should also ignore the rating agencies which have failed to upgrade India despite structural reforms? Let the government loosen the purse
But
string.
if they don't work out, you just ignore them next time. They lose reputation. Because if they keep saying things which really don't make any sense, then they will lose their reputation, right? Then why should anybody care what Standard and Poor does for you if they're not good at forecasting?
Correct.
So I think it is self-correcting. I wouldn't worry about it. But IMF has a lot of authority, and I really think both the agents, when I said they should be about, let them do whatever they want to. But as far as India is concerned, we shouldn't pay too much attention. We are now on our own.
So we shouldn't worry about fiscal deficit targets the way S&P,
that-
Moody's and all want us
No,
to,
all
and we don't want
that-
to breach it.
All that we can do on our own. We don't need IMF to help us. The best people in the IMF are people like us. They're not some gods who have descended from heaven, right? Most of them are not very competent, if you ask me, because they've got thousands of people there. How can you have thousands of people who are competent? Tell me. It's impossible.
Professor Bhagwati, thank you.
And Chanakya should be, because once when I went and did something for when Monte Ahluwalia was a secretary.
Parliament Commission.
Yeah, no, not in Parliament.
Oh, when
in
he
the,
was
in
the-
the
yeah.
finance minister. So the prime minister asked me to go and prepare a report. So I wrote to Mr. Ahluwalia saying I want to, meet union people, all kinds of people, to find out, reaction to proposals for change. And when I arrive, you know what he tells me? Why don't you go and talk to the IMF and World Bank? I said, if I wanted to talk to those guys, I would have gone to Washington, right? I don't come. So they spoil us, because they have so many resources, and you get free drinks at their parties and so on. And so I think we don't want. I seriously mean this.
I'm headed to IMF and World Bank next with the finance minister.
That Chanakya, where
Yeah,
you
Lutyens
know,
area.
near the India International Center, all that establishment ought to be wound down, because I think we need to learn on our own. And we don't need money from. If we go out the way we are doing, and as the finance minister was saying, lots of things can be. People are coming in. They want to get in on the ground floor, and once you open up, so the policy options, nobody else is going to tell you what to do. There's nothing they can tell you which you don't know.
Correct.
Right? And so I think in my judgment, India is on the right track, and I was very impressed with the finance minister, because usually around here you don't have anybody who talks like him.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't live here, but here. He was talking about how to handle corruption, and actually one of the jokes around here is that since the Clinton Foundation is full of corruption, Hillary Clinton too. So one of the jokes is that the Clintons ought to set up a consulting agency advising people on corruption and how to get away with it.